Hey guys, it's me Pookster, and I got another video for you today. It's my top 10 single player games of all time. I started gaming in 1999 with a Nintendo 64, so I've played a bunch of video games that are awesome, and I continue to do that to this day over on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/PooksterLive. If you want to come hang out, I go live every night at about 7 o'clock Pacific time. Now this is my top 10 list, not yours, so leave yours in the comment section down below, or comment down below what you think is gonna be in this list before the video even starts. But also make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications. Now without further ado, let's get into the video. Number 10. Batman Arkham City. This game has, hands down, one of the most fluid and well thought out combat mechanics in all of gaming. Whether it's cracking skulls or snapping spines, it feels like every punch, kick, or batarang toss is executed in a way that makes you feel powerful, as you should. You're fucking Batman! Having an open world to explore really makes the story feel much more impactful to the greater universe that is DC Comics, compared to just being in and around Arkham Asylum. You have so many choices of actions throughout a play session. You can just fly around and beat the shit out of bad guys, you can complete the plethora of Riddler challenges, or you can face off against many of the iconic villains such as Catwoman, Bane, Poison Ivy, or Mr. Freeze. It feels like at every intersection there is something unique and interesting for you to do. Another reason that I love this game is the voice acting. We get another phenomenal performance from Mark Hamill as the Joker, paired up with the iconic Kevin Conroy as Batman. It's a phenomenal game that deserved all the recognition that it received when it released. Side note, I think this iteration of Harley Quinn did something to awaken me as a young 15-year-old boy. So there's that. Let's move on. Number 9. Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Taking a sharp turn from number 10 is the third series of remakes and updates to the popular franchise of Pokemon. The first new Pokemon game that I ever played was Pokemon Emerald for the Nintendo Game Boy. I distinctly remember watching my friend, now roommate, play his copy of either Ruby or Sapphire at his house, and how jealous it made me that I couldn't play it as well. I begged and begged my parents for a Game Boy SP just so I could play Pokemon. Unwrapping those gifts brought on pure excitement. I loved the Pokemon TV series growing up, and being able to live in that universe was awesome. Over the years, I lost many a Pokemon game, including that copy of Emerald. Being able to relive those childhood memories in a new generation of animation and world building that Alpha and Omega did was phenomenal for me. Flying around on either Latios or Latios, scouring the land for legendaries, were great pastimes for endgame content. These games included the best version of the increased evolutions, being Mega Evolutions. The mechanic was the most enjoyable and simple version of these increased evolutions. You can't even argue that Mega Charizard X and Mega Rayquaza aren't the coolest looking Pokemon of all time. Onto my introduction to story-based shooting games, Fallout New Vegas. When I was growing up, my dad had a friend that came over one night while my mom was out of town for a week. He brought over his brand new PlayStation 3 and had this cool new game called Fallout 3. I remember watching those two play that game, and it really enamored me. Walking through the vault killing giant rad roaches scared the piss out of young me, but it also got me really interested in games like this. I had played Fallout 3 years later by myself and loved it, but there was something that really enticed me about playing in the Wild West version of that universe. Fallout New Vegas was the first Fallout game to have aiming down sights, which intrigued me into initially trying out that game. Boy, I'm glad I did, because this game took me down a path I'll never forget. The choices you get to make in this game and the new characters were truly special. Between the Yes Man, Benny, or the seemingly absent Brotherhood of Steel, there was always twists and turns that have you guessing at every step of the way. Having to choose between the NCR, Caesar's Legion, and Mr. House was a truly gut-wrenching decision for me. Running around the Mojave Wasteland with Boone and Eddie wiping out the Caesar's Legion, Deathclaws, Cazadors, you name it, and searching for special weapons will always be one of my fondest gaming memories. Now it's time to talk about the video game that everyone probably guessed would be on here, as it's been ported to just about every video game console known to man, Skyrim. Talk about true masterpieces of coding and visual magic. I mean, look at this. You can't beat this. In all seriousness, besides the obvious glitches and weird bugs, this game is next to perfect. The overarching story, breathtaking visuals, and impressive world building, Bethesda made this game stand out. There was nothing like playing around in Skyrim, doing quests for the Thieves Guild while leveling up your magic skills. But let's be real, You probably played as a sneaky archer most of the time. Whether it was scamming Fendal to train your archery to level 50 by the time you left Riverwood, or getting married in Riften, there was a never-ending slew of tasks to continue with your adventures. I remember getting lost in Blackreach for hours, only to remember that I could just fast travel out of that area. There was nothing more satisfying than seeing a dragon flying around the map that you shout at to come fight you, and it turned out to be a bone dragon and kicking the ever-loving shit out of you, and you finally get the kill and suck that soul in, making yourself much more powerful. Overall, Skyrim was a beautiful escape into the fantasy genre of gaming for me. If you're looking for poop jokes, exciting fantasy, and an incredible story, look no further than my number 6, South Park and the Stick of Truth. Being a fan of the TV series for over 15 years now, it was a no-brainer that I was going to like this game. I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did, however. Elements like making Timmy the fast-traveling system or having farts be the magic were really intuitive design choices. Pair this with the fantastic writing and storytelling that Trey Parker and Matt Stone bring to the table, and you have one of the most fun 20 or so hours of gaming. While the combat at times can make you want more, they deliver on this in the second iteration of the game called South Park: The Fractured Butthole. But the combat suits this game. It was obvious that this game wasn't just thrown together on a whim, and it was a well thought out masterpiece of storytelling, visuals, and gaming. Being a fan of the show will definitely help you understand the jokes and references, but it's not required. If you want a game that will make you feel all sorts of emotions and laugh your ass off along the way, this is the game for you. If laughter and poop jokes aren't your style, but ripping demons in half and then stomping on their heads while slaying out to some heavy metal music is your jam, then Doom Eternal is your game. The most recently released game in this list has become one of my all-time favorites for a plethora of reasons. The main reason was how incredibly fun and frustrating this gameplay actually is. When you think you've completed an area, more shit starts popping out and causing more carnage to ensue. There's no better feeling in this game than comboing one of the Marauder enemies and taking it out a lot quicker than some of the equally difficult enemies like Doom Hunters or Arc Vials. Having more than enough tools to take on the onslaught of demons is always handy as well. My personal favorite gun is the Super Shotgun. Being able to have a flaming grappling hook that allows you to move around the arenas more fluidly while allowing you to take a breath and gather yourself is wonderful. Obtaining that gun is one of the more pleasurable experiences in this game too, as you get to become one of the demons that you fight so hard to defeat. Normally, I like to play games on the medium difficulty. That way I can still experience the story and have some trouble going through it. But I'm glad I didn't do that in this game. My roommate pressured me into playing it on the hard difficulty so I'd be more challenged. I'm glad that happened because this is the first game I ever tried and successfully completed on the extreme difficulty later on. Having the previous playthrough's knowledge made that run so much more enjoyable for me, and I felt like the most badass version of me I could be. It doesn't hurt to also have the phenomenal music paired with the game as well. It adds way more than you would ever expect to the game, and it really ties it all together perfectly. I highly recommend trying this game out for yourself. You will not regret it in the slightest. My number 4 is Breath of the Wild. Having played only 3 other Zelda games, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and Wind Waker, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I was greeted with one of the most visually stunning games that I'd ever played. Nintendo really outdid themselves with this game. From going around and smacking Bokoblins and finding 120 shrines or acquiring enough Korok seeds to get all the upgrades I wanted, I was truly never bored throughout playing this game. There was a perfect amount of side content to do when not focusing on the main mission, defeating Calamity Ganon. I really enjoyed how once you finish the tutorial phase of the game, if you want, you can go face off against the final boss. Giving players the agency to do what they want and how they want is a really good idea for single player games. It is too common to see games hold your hand and walk you straight down the path to victory, and that's not Breath of the Wild. Going from the vast desert of the Gerudo people to the flowing wetland that the Zora people live in is just a visual masterpiece. The combat mechanics are so unbelievably fluid and pure, you really feel like each weapon that you use has a different feel and impact to the fights that you're engaging in. While there are some who don't like the shrines and giant guardians, I feel like they worked well in the game. If you have a Switch and you haven't played this game yet, change that immediately. The next installment is in my favorite series of modern games, and there's no better game than Borderlands 2 to represent this universe for me. The way that Gearbox was able to portray a villain as eccentric as Handsome Jack is unmatched in any game. You really do see a huge amount of character development, not just on your character, but the side characters and the villain. Borderlands 2 is the reason why we get good villains in games now. The characters that you fell in love with in Borderlands 1 are showcased as these powerful leaders that only help push the story in positive directions. The new characters that you get to play as are all phenomenal cast members as well. Being able to play as a psycho turned vault hunter is one of the more enjoyable things in all of gaming. The humor that is present in the first installment of the series is amplified right out of the gate in this game. My favorite character of any video game is Claptrap. And I know most people hate this little yellow guy, but to me, he is the best part of this game. Just kidding. But he is great comedic relief, and playing as him in the pre-sequel is an unbelievable amount of fun. Overall, this game takes some chances in places and plays it safe in others. The combat is good, the character trait upgrades feel impactful, and the flow is unbelievable. Now, if you're not convinced yet, just let this clip convince you to play this game.
These are human beings with lives and families and totally kidding. Screw those guys.
Now, my number 2 will definitely turn some heads, but hear me out. I enjoyed playing Super Mario Sunshine when it released more than I did when I first played Mario 64. Running around with Flood on my back will always bring back good memories. With the inclusion of Yoshi as a somewhat prominent feature in this game, I was hooked instantly. There was a huge sense of accomplishment running around and cleaning up the paint that Baby Bowser would lay down. Also, talk about an introduction to that character. Becoming the main source of evil going on in the game was a good way to introduce Baby Bowser to this universe. The movement felt good when using the different Flood packs. One for precision height movement and the other for distance. The puzzles were difficult. The levels where you couldn't use Flood were amazing. Overall, this game is the epitome of Mario games for me. And the music, my god, the Isle Delfino song is constantly stuck in my head to this day. Overall, this game is a huge nostalgia boner for me. It was the one game on GameCube I was able to play before we traded in our GameCube for the PlayStation 2. It was the first game I bought in college when I bought a new GameCube. This game will forever hold a special place in my heart. The Sly Cooper series is a really underrated game series, and Sly Cooper 2 encapsulates this game series perfectly. You get a good introduction into stealth gaming directed for kids. Sure, it's goofy and cartoony, but it's janky in all the right places. When you are running around from rooftop to rooftop, collecting bottles that contain pages to your family's long-running Thievius Raccoonus, or running away from Carmelita Fox, every move you make is important. Sure, there are some weird interactions, but my dumb 8-year-old ass didn't give a fuck. In the first game, you were introduced to the cast of Sly Cooper, the raccoon, and the only playable character, Bentley the turtle or tortoise, the brains of the operation, and Murray the hippo, the getaway driver who is also the crew's muscle. They were all orphans growing up together and decided to get Sly's family treasure back. In the second installment of the series, you get to play as Bentley and Murray, which adds so much depth to the storyline of the game. You get a bunch of new quest options for each character, and they do a good job of keeping things interesting from each level on. This was the first game that I distinctly remember being able to have a deep conversation about with my dad and help problem solve for each other's run-throughs. I would rush home from school and try to complete as many quests as I could. That way I could maybe get further than my dad would be after I went to bed and he started playing. Eventually we got to the final boss, Clockwork, and were able to defeat it after like 2 attempts. It was a super cool moment for me and my dad. All of the NPCs feel fairly fleshed out with their somewhat cheesy backstories. The combat gets improved in the second game, but overall, this is the game that I had the most fun growing up with. That's why this is my favorite game. And there it is. There's my top 10. If you guys have differing opinions than me, leave them in the comment section down below. Or make sure you just like this video and then subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate every person that's hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you back here soon.